Eulogy to a Dying Star. This must be one of the most beautiful set names in the history of World of Warcraft. And with that, good day today and welcome to the show. My name is Martin, I am a 3D artist, and today I want to take a closer look at the patch 11.2 Priest tier set in World of Warcraft. What thoughts probably went into creating this set? What interesting little details can we discover along the way? What can we learn for our own character design? And is this even a good Priest tier set to begin with? Let's find out. Before we get started, I quickly want to thank all of you who have already tuned in for the first video about the Death Knight tier set. All of this was really just a weird little idea that I had a couple of days ago, and I never expected several hundred people turning up and enjoying my fairly extensive analysis of a WoW tier set from a completely new channel with 0 subscribers, 0 videos. So this came as a bit of a surprise to me, but yeah, thanks, I guess. Now, as with the first video, don't worry if you don't know a whole lot about WoW. I'll make sure to explain everything that's important for the specific character / class design. I'll give you a massively oversimplified recollection of relevant story elements, as well as a short overview of what the class is and isn't whenever I feel it's necessary. I will also stick to my video breakdown, where we start out with quickly analyzing the silhouette of the model, talk about the overall design concept / idea, then focus in on a couple of interesting details and finish the video off with a look at the different colorways of this set. Now let's look at that silhouette. Turn it around, and this is what we've got this time around. So we're starting with, oh boy, that's big. We're starting with a halo / crown shape on top of a hood, which is fairly basic for a priest. And we have these, let's say, half moon shapes for now. Also got some spikes on here, which is not too priest-like if you'd ask me. And we have the rest of the shoulder piece coming out under here, leading into the arms. Should you, by the way, be wondering why I selected the Nightborn today, that's because my priest is a Nightborn. Then we have the little balls in here, which are also not to be disregarded. The little bit bigger type of sleeve, which is fairly usual for any type of cloth armor. And then we have these spiky arm bits around here, and finish off in a big priesty robe. So, anything super unusual? Well, I mean, these shoulders are massive. The halo / crown is fairly noticeable. We'll get into the shapes individual in a second, but I think overall this silhouette is very well done. We have very recognizable elements here on top with the crown / halo. We have the big shoulders with the spikes. And then under that we kind of have this regular kind of priest set. We got the big arm bits, and we got the robe, and we also got these spiky bracers, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so this is a cloth armor. This is a little bit priesty in some spaces. It could also be another cloth class if we want to be entirely honest, but as soon as we're getting into the details, I think it will be obvious that this is a priest set. So let's get into that. Now for the design language of this headpiece, we obviously have a sort of hood design. This is nothing unusual for any type of priest set. We've seen this plenty in the past. I think it's to be understood as some sort of reference to real-life monks of the European variety, even though we later on got the monk class, which then again is more on the Asian monk side of things. So this is, I think, where this design piece comes from. In addition to the hood, we then also have the halo, which goes all the way around the character's head. Halo, obviously a symbol of, well, being holy, but also an actual ability in the game right now. Other than that, I don't think that there's a whole lot to talk about in the head section. I think this piece down here is a little bit unusual. I can't really point my finger as to what this is supposed to be, considering the class of priest or the current content, any specific characters that this is supposed to be referencing. So if you know anything, feel free to leave a comment down below and let me know what this is all about. I do have a bit of a theory lined up, but I actually want to put that part of the discussion closer to the end of the video, because for now I really want to talk about the things that I know, that I really noticed, and that definitely make sense. So after looking at the head, I'd like to continue with the shoulders. And I have to be honest, until I started making a couple of notes to not entirely wing this video, I didn't know what these shapes were. Initially, I read them, as I said in the beginning, pretty much as half-moon shapes and was wondering what the spikes would have to do with the priest. Now, everyone who has been playing World of Warcraft for a while now and looks at this shape will probably have come to the conclusion before I did. This is obviously a reference to pretty much the main character of the game right now, Xal'atath. Now, the very first time that we got to encounter Xal'atath in World of Warcraft was all the way back in Legion. And at the time, we didn't encounter her as a character, but we did encounter her as an artifact weapon, a dagger to be precise, which we obtained through the class-specific or even specialization-specific questline for Shadow Priests. And within this questline, we did free Xal'atath from the dagger, and we got to keep the dagger. So this is first and foremost not a general priest shape that we have here, but it is very deeply connected to the current lore of the class, of the specialization of Shadow Priest. Now we are missing this little handle bit here in the middle, but I think this is actually just replaced by the ball floating above it. And other than that, yes, there are a couple of little changes to the overall shape made in order to make it fit into the set, but generally I think it is fairly obvious that this here is the dagger Xal'atath. An additional detail we have that is linked to Xal'atath is this little crystal piece down here. We also have it over here, and we also have one around the back, but I can't turn the model while I'm drawing, so we'll look at that in a second. There are a couple of these crystals spread across the model, and these are also very telling that this is supposed to reference Xal'atath. What I actually wonder about is how it came to pass that the shoulder bits are actually just floating above here and are empty on the inside. So we have those kind of tooth bits in here, and then this kind of shape, which makes it look a lot like some sort of jawbone. And I can really point my finger at it why that is, again, because I wouldn't know of any specific animal that has been killed by Xal'atath in order to get to her powers. It's also not really referencing any old god, I think. It's also definitely not referencing anything that I'd be aware of in the cosmos of being a priest or whatever. So this is really unusual. I went into the Warcraft bestiary and also specifically in some of the new creatures, even though they're not all really new, but the current patch content relevant creatures. And the only one I could really come up with was the Mauler, which can also be a mount in this new patch. But again, I don't really know what that would have to do with anything, really. Now that we're already back here, I noticed that I did forget a little detail, which is here on the back of the head, which is another half moon shape. I'll just circle it so you see it. Yeah, this is another fairly obvious Xalatath reference. These half moons are usually used to hold her cloak, and I think a couple of them are also spread in other parts, I think also in her headpiece. So yeah, this type of scythe or sickle or half moon or whatever you want to call it is a very Xalatath typical symbol. Now the chest, I think, comes with a couple of very basic priesty design elements. Number one would be this bit here. This, I would say, comes from, just once again, real-life priests and monks. It is just part of the robe. It can also be part of the hood construction, which we can't really see now in this picture here. And it also doesn't really matter. So we have this little neck piece up here. Then we have those two pieces that come down here, which is also, again, very reminiscent of the real-life priests. In the middle, I think it looks a little bit fancy, actually. We have this on a couple of sets this season. They all look not necessarily like the kind of martial, rugged, kind of adventurer type clothing, but they all look a little bit festive in a certain manner, I think. It also counts for like the hunter set, I think is also a lot like it. Also the rogue, they're all very clean, very elegant in a way, which is different to a lot of the usual tier sets we've seen, but I kind of like that style. I'll remove the lines so we can see the next thing a little bit better. What I find very well made in this set, even though it is for a cloth class, which isn't necessarily the type of class that lives from a very heroic look, like for instance, like the warrior or paladin in the big armors, the big strong guys. For the priest, that's not always necessarily the design language you want to go for, but you can still add a couple of details to give off that impression, and that's what they did with this little overlaying piece here. You can also see it in the texturing. It's fairly dark under here, so it goes very much inward, and then we have this shape down here to complete the chest piece. That that little bit in the back is actually only the cloak that we see right now here. So what we do with adding this shape is actually just accentuating the V taper of the character, so that we want to have this broad chest and thin waist. That's, yeah, just the hallmark of pretty much any heroic fit character. And what I then also find very well made is that they actually added this little stuffing folds down here that you will have when you add this kind of big belt, so that the fabric is flowing a little bit over the belt, which just adds a little bit of realism to the more comic style that we have. And it also speaks cloth. Like, this is nothing that would happen with a character that wears a plate armor. It would happen way less with a character in a leather armor. So you can really only have this type of detail in a cloth wearing character. So this just displays the material that's used a little bit better, makes it easier to read on the first glance, and it's just a very little detail that you wouldn't really miss if it weren't there, but if it is there, it kind of helps you interpret the character a little better, helps you interpret the material that's used, and just gives a bit more of a realistic vibe. Now the belt, I think, is fairly massive for this type of character, but I mean, it is still a Warcraft character, so also with the arm pieces that actually aren't displayed properly in this render here, I think, in combination with all the other big details, I don't think it comes off as wrong in any way. It's just a big belt. Of course, also have a massive belt buckle. We once again have this stone in here, which is maybe a little bit reminiscent of the other crystals, even though the shape is fairly different. So I think it's really just another stone that's added for visuals. We have these bends in here and also the thorns up here. So while this is a bit more of an abstraction with a little more creative liberty than up here, I still think that the general idea is still to kind of recreate the typical shapes that are found in Xal'atath, the Blade of the Black Empire. Down here we have these little bits. I'm not really sure. They look more like something that a goblin would have maybe built. But yeah, I think these are just very standard design bits that we have here. And nothing that's necessarily meant to give off a certain character or class vibe. It is really just a bit of a continuation from the design pieces, the main design pieces we have up here. So all things considered, I don't think that the belt is supposed to mean anything specific. It is really just a bit of a picking up the design of the shoulders again and incorporating that into the belt, so we have an overall functioning set, really. Now for the arm piece, I have returned to the 3D viewer. It's a little bit better visible here, even though I'm going to have a bit of a hard time drawing it, but you can see it. We have the half moon shape that goes around the wrist, and then we also have the thorns, the spikes added again, just with the other pieces that are redesigns of Xal'atath, the blade. The lower part of the robe once again includes this kind of shape, which once again is reminiscent of the Xal'atath shape. We have a couple of chains here. We also have a lot of folds up here that tell us that once again this is a cloth armor set. We also have those included in the front and down here. So this is all very well readable as what it is. And what I really like about this lower part of the armor is how many layers it is. Because if we look at it, we have this one here. This part is the very top that's hanging over everything else. Then we have this middle part, which is already tucked under that. Then we have this part, which is probably more or less on the same layer as the middle part, but it's still kind of the third layer. Then we have another layer under that, and then under that we have a final fifth layer of cloth, which yes, just gives the eye a lot to look at. It allows us to play with all these different colors, even a little bit of different ways of the fabric flowing in the different pieces. And this is really, really nicely designed. I really like what they did here. Okay, before we get into the colorways, there are two more things that I quickly want to talk about. One of them is this lower part of the hood and the shoes that we also haven't talked about to this point. These two pieces are, I think, not really fitting the set. They kind of fit the vibe, but I don't really know what they're supposed to tell us. Both of them have visually, to me, a bit of an oriental vibe, which is a kind of design that we see very rarely in World of Warcraft. The only character I can really think of is Rathian. Really just some of the black dragons in their visage form. Other than that, it's something that's really never present in World of Warcraft. We do have a couple of Egyptian style influences in WoW, but I really wouldn't put this much as Egyptian. The only thing I can really connect to this type of face guard are the Persian immortals, or maybe that one character in Game of Thrones. And all of that never really was very prevalent in the history of WoW. So the only thing I can imagine that it is maybe supposed to represent the Kareshi that we currently meet in the form of the ethereals, that this is maybe what they looked like when they still were people, not ethereals. That's really the only thing I can think of. Maybe also in connection with the title of this tier set, Eulogy to a Dying Star. Even though Karesh is, well, astronomically not a star, it's a world, a planet. The Dying Star, I think, is supposed to mean Dimensious, even though story-wise, having a eulogy for him is, I think, a little early in the day, because all we really did was manage to defeat him in one battle, but he is nowhere near dead at this point. Yeah, but he has a lot of black hole stuff going on, so I think the Dying Star is Dimensious, or maybe it has actually directly something to do with Xalatath in a part of the story that we do not yet know. I'm currently recording this bit of the video a couple of hours before we get to see the midnight announcement trailer tonight at Gamescom. So at the point this video goes live, we may already have a better clue what the Dying Star situation is all about, or it's really just a nice title for a tier set. Let's be honest, not everything always has a deeper meaning. There are so many different teams working on different things. Maybe these are just a couple of details that the designer liked and wanted to put in. They don't look bad. They only look, in my opinion, a little bit out of place maybe. But also the colors they use, this kind of sand color, does tie in with this type of oriental design. So yeah, this is just something I wanted to talk about very briefly. Now let's get into the colorways. Let's talk colors. Again, we have 6 different colorways, 4 of them PvE, 2 of them PvP, and we want to look at all of them, have a couple of thoughts what specs or sub-specs they may work for best, and also want to check if they generally work well with the visuals. So the first one I think is very clearly a healer set. Now this doesn't really speak shadow to me. It is obviously a holy or discipline set. We have the yellow balls. We have also the yellow light effect up here. The yellow details are repeated in the crystals all across the armor. And this is really just representing the holy light. So this is mainly, in my opinion, a holy set. Next up, we have the blue one, the normal mode. We have the blue light, the blue balls, the blue crystals. It is mixed with gold. It's the set we've been looking at the entire time. Once again, I don't really see it as much of a shadow set. It is more of a holy, this kind of set. So this is what we take it for. I think the color combination also of the first set, by the way, works very well. We have these blue and yellow golden tones mixed now with the white. This works extremely well and I like it very much. Now the third one is another colorway that we've seen before in different classes, different sets, and we've also seen plenty this entire expansion, and it is the color of the Arathi. Now the Arathi live in Hallowfall. They are people that we have met at the beginning of the expansion. They have a increasingly bigger role and will probably also have this bigger role in the future. They have armors mainly in the colors black, white with some red accents, and they also worship the living flame, which is represented with the orange bits that are included. So this is the Arathi set that has not really anything to do with us as priests specifically. Next up, the mythic, the obvious choice. It is the Void set, it is the Xal'atath set. We have the Void balls, we have the crystals, pretty much the original color scheme of Xal'atath herself. I think the purple bits are a little bit lighter than in the original Xal'atath set, but yeah, it is obviously I think the original idea of the set was this one, the Void set, the Xal'atath set. Obviously the main idea for the Shadow Priest. Coming into PvP, I think the next one is another Void set, also for the PvP players. It is more on the purple leaning instead of the blue type of Void, but I wouldn't know anything else that this is supposed to represent. Now this obviously again works best for the Shadow Priest, but on the other hand obviously also for the Discipline Priest if they are spec'd into the Void Weaver hero talent. So this is also very Void focused spec that will work very well with this set. And then the last one, as we've seen it with the other classes as well, it is really just red. The Elite PvP sets, I think all of them, I didn't check, but I think all of them, or at least most of them this season, are red. I don't know why, but I do kind of think that it is cool that we have this overall color scheme with the red and black this season that really shows off the elite PvPers in a season. I think this wasn't the case in the past. I think this is something new that they came up with. I really like the idea. I'm not sure why they decided on red necessarily, because it is the Horde color. So for the Alliance, I think it feels a little bit weird that the best of your PvP players are rewarded with a set in the color of the opposing faction. But I think this will probably be the other way around next season, or I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I'd preferably see the PvP sets over here faction specific anyway from the start. That would be a personal request of mine, if they could add 2 more colorways that are a little more Horde or a little more Alliance in the future. I think that would be kind of cool. On the other hand, it might get boring pretty quickly if we always have the red and blue sets for the PvPers. I don't know. They have the red set this season. This is what we got. I think all of them look really nice. All the colors work very well. Also the purple and red here isn't always easy to combine. They can look odd, but in this case it's very well made. The gold version is also really good looking. I really like the set. Everything Void stuff wins in my opinion anyway, because I have been playing a lot of Shadow Priest in the past couple of seasons. The Arathi design works super well, and the other 2 also look very, very nice. So is this a good tier set? Is it a good priest set? We briefly look at the final verdict. So we have our silhouette to judge. I already said it. I think it is very well done. We have the very big shoulders. It clearly speaks cloth with the big arm pieces, with the robe bits. I really like that they accentuated the V-taper in the upper body. The hood works very well for a priest as always. So overall, this is a very nice silhouette. The overall design incorporates a lot of the Xal'atath pieces. We have the shoulders, we have the arm pieces, we had a couple of details on the back. We have the hood that speaks priest, we have the robe that speaks priest. So this is a very well designed cloth set overall, with a couple of details that make it obviously a priest set. Now for the specs, I think they could have maybe done a little bit of a better job. For the priest, it's obviously always very difficult because we have the Shadow Priest, which does damage, which has a special form. and is very different from the other two specs, which are healer specs. So getting all of these types of playing under one visual set is always a challenge. So they obviously try to solve this usually more over the colorways and not as much over the design language of the set in general. I think with the Halo, we have a little bit of something that speaks priest, and then we also have this very basic European priest design in the upper body. So they incorporated a couple of things, but they're not perfect for all the specs. A couple of things I think are always going to be a little bit weird, especially all of these Xal'atath influences. As good as they work for the Shadow Priest, they don't work really at all with the other two specs. So on the specs, it's, well, let's say halfway. Theme, obviously very well selected. Xal'atath is the main antagonist. We have the entire expansion and probably even the 2 expansions that are coming up in the future. The character of Xal'atath is very deeply connected to the Shadow Priest. Again, sad for the other 2 priest specs, but the theme still fits very well. So overall, I don't think that this is one of the very best priest sets of all time, but it is an extremely solid set with a couple of really nice details. It looks generally very good. There's nothing really off-putting about it, like last season's set with this absolutely absurd type of hood and the halo they selected in that set. For me, that was really off-putting. A couple of other details I also really didn't like. This time around, I really have nothing to complain about. Find the shoes and the face piece a little bit weird, but these are very minor details that don't hurt the overall design at all. So that's also a check mark from me, and that's our final verdict on the priest set. It is a super solid priest set. The colorways are all very pretty. They do work reasonably well with the different specs, and that's it for today. If you want to say anything more about it, I asked you a couple of questions over the duration of this video, so I look forward to your comments. Maybe we can have a little discussion about the things that I couldn't really point out in this video, and also if you have any feedback as to what you would like to see in the future on this channel. I'm really open for anything as long as it has to do with art in any kind of way. So let me know, leave a comment, subscribe if you like what I'm doing here, give the video a like, this helps me a whole lot, and yeah, hopefully see you next time. Bye!